Well, well, well. Talking about a microcosm, how about the end of this game? You got a little bit of everything that you look forward to, Cleveland Browns season, all jammed up into half of a quarter of football. And it starts with a non-existent holding penalty that the announcers had to say something about an offhand where he just touched the guy's arm when he was releasing. That nullified the winning touchdown. And you could see that the Raiders weren't going to be able to do anything when they had their opportunity. And I'm going to add David Talevsky in. Hi, David.
Hello, Moo.
And from there, the Raiders giving us the ball back. Then their punter kicking monster punts like our punter was kicking monster punts. And then a big play run by Jerome Ford. And then complete lack of, total panic. Deontay Foreman lines up in the wrong place. Watson is telling him to get behind him because he's in the wrong formation. But Deontay Foreman stands there. This is why Deontay Foreman wasn't playing in the NFL. All right. They snap the ball into him. So immediately it's 2nd and 16. Then you have a situation where we got ourselves into a manageable 4th down and Stefanski just runs out the clock for him. For absolutely no fucking reason whatsoever. He starts thinking he's going to get them to jump off sides, and he runs 25 to 27 seconds off of a clock when he's got 3 timeouts. This is the end. I would fire the coach now. That doesn't make any sense. He bet on the games with the referee. I have no idea what he was thinking. Stop and try to think this through if you can. You have 3 timeouts. You've got to consider what play you're going to run. So you call a timeout and you come up with your best play. You talk to your quarterback, you talk to your offensive line, and you come up with the best play you can come up with. That's what any real coach would do. But this one runs off 25 to 27 seconds of the clock, trying to get them to jump off sides, which you knew they wouldn't do. And now he's got to do something. And what does he come in with? A 3-man out pattern where nobody's open and gets the quarterback killed. There was no RPO. There was no primary receiver. Everybody was downfield because they had to throw for the end zone because Kevin ran all the time off the clock. Fuck him and the horse he rode in on from the Ivy League. That is inexcusable. Amari Cooper dropping another one that turned into an interception that turned the whole game around for them. It's inexcusable. But you know something? I can point to all of this, and it all points to the top still. Amari Cooper's not with it because the Browns management wanted to trade him for Brandon Sucks Ayuk. And it all leaked out because they got no ability to keep things private. And now Amari Cooper doesn't want to be in Cleveland, and this is what happens. What you have seen happen with countless players who are playing for inept operations. The front office has cost us the attitude of the best attitude guy on the team. Broken him. And he is broken for good because I would have taken him off the field. Let's get Keith in here as well. Hi, Keith. So, right off the bat, just a
Hey,
microcosm.
Moo, I
Yes. Are you at that much of a delay? I guess so. You got to get a better connection, Keith, because we're not going to be able to. Yeah, we can't keep you on the air. I'm sorry.
No, I think I have a little bit of a delay, so I'll be back.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that. Go ahead. I'll mute that microphone.
I think
and Keith, if you ever get it fixed, just drop me a line.
I think he's so far behind they just drafted Brady Quinn at quarterback.
And this is the bottom line, Keith. You could have kicked a field goal, gotten the ball back in time to get in field goal position again with the guy who can make it from 60 yards. But the guy who can make it from 60 yards, they
Just
wouldn't let him
missed
kick
it.
a 57-yard field goal.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
And
let
just
him.
missed an extra point that was
Yep.
really a significant factor in, that last quarter.
We ruined Cooper. It was Jimmy Haslam who's responsible for all of this. Make no mistake. And if you want to watch this for a whole season, if you're going to care about it, I just move on because I know they will always find a way because the guy at the top is a loser. And if you can take a guy like Amari Cooper, who's been in the league 10, 11 years, and has been a great attitude player everywhere he plays, and ruin his attitude, you got to be special. You got to be really fucking special. And that's exactly what Jimmy Haslam is. He is special, all right? We're going to add Hammer time in. Hi, Hammer.
Damn. We're really lucky that I can't find a hose that fits the exhaust on my car at this point.
And Amsterdam brings this up. This is all from the top, folks.
Yeah.
You can look and do. You can say this happened, that happened, but the decisions being made. This is what happens when you make bad decisions. It always comes back to bite in the ass. The announcers were even making fun of the fact that, oh, this guy used to play in Cleveland. This guy had a great game who used to play in Cleveland. It's become a joke. The ownership of this team has become a joke.
Well, they had 5 or 6 chances to win this game in the fourth quarter. And you could chalk it up to the missed extra point. You could chalk it up to all different kinds of things, right? The point is, in the last 2 weeks, they've had several chances to win these games, and they fumbled them.
Well, I don't think Captain Fierce that anyone saw this happening. I mean, that was like Bronk talking about Prochet returning a kick for 85 yards for a touchdown. Nobody saw this ending coming because nobody would think that a head coach could be so much blighted in his mind that he would allow that clock to run down with 3 timeouts, thinking that he was going to get the other side to jump off sides. No, you didn't see that happen. Nobody saw that coming. You'd have to be in between the ears of the head coach. And, I think all of them, I honestly believe that Stefanski's losing on purpose to get let go so we can go someplace else and have a career. I really believe this. Because if he breaks Amari Cooper and think of Landry before him. Landry was the best team guy in the NFL. Everybody said so. Well, but something happened when he came to Cleveland, didn't he? And they got rid of him. They mistreat people. It is just unbelievable. You didn't tell me something I didn't know. I predicted 7-10, and before they even stepped on the field this year. They're all injured and they're not very good, but it's really decision making too. Why they didn't try the field goal. This is all in the head of the head coach, and he's overthinking things to a degree that the only thing I can think of, he wants to be let go. And I would let them all go. I don't care if the team plays football or not. I would cripple all of the players myself so that they wouldn't have to be subjected to this kind of stupidity. Why play the game if the people on top are not trying to win? And do you think that didn't affect the extra point? You think a guy who would hit all of these field goals in succession from over 50 yards, and when they have a chance to use him from 57 yards out, the other team used a guy from 56 yards out and made it going the same direction. Why not us? And the answer is we have no faith in anybody. Totally faithless. And
It's
then
also
he steps up and he misses the extra point.
It's also a dome. There's no advantage, disadvantage one way or the other than maybe looking at that big giant torch, the Al Davis torch, if you were going one way or the other. I mean, three interesting things though that came up on the graphics when the game started. Going into the game, the Browns had 16 sacks allowed this season, which was the most in the NFL. 14 drop passes going into this game, most in the NFL. 95.7 rushing yards per game, which was 23rd in the league. Ow.
Well, you can tell the defensive line wasn't getting the quarterback. Myles Garrett was playing crippled, and he put out a good effort based on what he had. The offensive line didn't even care. Juwan Jones just wasn't even there. He wasn't even trying to block anybody. I mean, the one play where I want to say maybe the second or third to last play when they were on the drive when they were talking about, well, if that's an RPO, he's got to throw the ball. It's like, did you see what the RPO was? The fake handoff, or the idea that there was going to be a handoff to Ford. The guy's hands were around Ford, 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
That forced Watson to have to run. I mean, it's the offensive line isn't even there.
We saw how many times they had backs and tight ends back in protect to try to give Watson a little more time because the line just couldn't hold anybody out of there. So
well, here's my question. Like, okay, so
Sure.
if we know we don't have that time, we know we have a bad offensive line, which is obviously the case.
Yep.
Like, why aren't you devising ways to get the ball out of his hands quicker, just like every other team does against us? Because every other team,
Right,
they
exactly.
play us, and they're like, "Oh, they're down 2 offensive linemen, so we should have a great day." And they throw the ball right over our heads in 3 seconds, and it's just crazy to me. Like, why can't you? Go ahead.
Okay, I can answer a lot of these questions. For example, what's happened to Emerson? Emerson was like a great coverage guy, and now he's playing 10 yards off receivers. What's the story? How were we missing so many open field tackles when we were making those tackles last year? It's effort. It's all about a lack of effort. And why is there a lack of effort? Because Jim Schwartz knows one way, and that's to whip people. Doesn't whip himself. He whips others. And he's whipped his way out of multiple teams in the NFL. And this is going to be the next one. All right. The attitude of players, I mean, you were even seeing, it's like you weren't even seeing until the Browns kind of got back into the game. Koromoa then showed up. Where was he the whole game? They're whipped. They're beaten down. They don't want to play. And they're a better team than the Raiders, even with second stringers. They're a better team. They won the game. They had to call some fictitious holding call to get the job done for them. But the Browns weren't there, and they haven't been there all season long. As far as Keith, as far as you're concerned, Stefanski to me is the least of the problem. All right. If you're going to blame Kevin Stefanski for Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco, and Kareem Hunt, do you really think that Kevin Stefanski went to Jimmy Haslam and said, you have to fire all these guys? No, No, that's only coming from one source. It's coming from Jimmy Haslam and from the front office. It has nothing to do with Stefanski. I'm pissed at Stefanski because of what coaching decisions he makes or doesn't make on the sideline. Hell yeah. But to sit there and say that, all of this has happened with other players because of Stefanski. Stefanski didn't want to get rid of those players. You do what your employer tells you to do if you want to have a job. Now it comes to the point where he has a job and he wants a new one. All right. Because he's been coach of the year twice. This is the most Cleveland could do for him, is to give him a name. And he's got to get out. I know what it's like to play in a hopeless situation. All right. In business. I know. I'll tell you a story. Do you a short story. So I'm in Jackson, Tennessee. I'm running radio stations there. It was my first job as a general manager. I was 27 years old. All right. As a kid. But I didn't want to lose. And the owner was a jerk off. And he dragged me into a restaurant, him and his brother, and tried to publicly humiliate me in the restaurant by raising their voice to me and to whip me. I promptly found another job in Spokane, Washington, and when he came into the building the next time, I took the keys to the station, slid them across the table, and said, "Here you go, you motherfucker. Bye." That's what you do. Because you're either about winning to me at that point in my life. I've got a job, and Spokane was just, a year in my life, or if that. And, no big deal. I'd never been to the Pacific Northwest. It was cool. I got to go to Seattle. I got to go to Eugene, Oregon. It was fun. I was young. But the bottom line is, don't ask me to come someplace to fucking lose. And that's what's happened in Cleveland. That's why they're there, to lose. And
I'll make a bold prediction for you.
Go ahead.
Stefanski himself will step down mid-season.
Say again?
Stefanski will step down mid-season.
No, because that would hurt him in a position to get a job someplace else. I mean, you have to remember that for me, when I was 27 years old, somebody would offer me a job. At the time, they paid me $48,000 a year to manage a radio station in Spokane, Washington. All right? That's what they paid me. And it wasn't great money, but it paid the bills. And I had to learn more about my trade, and no better way than to be in a position where you're actually in charge of a radio station, or, well, part of it. But what they would do is they would screw around with the format of the station. They would find ways to lose. And that's why they were stuck hiring a 27-year-old general manager in the first place. And that's the reason why the Browns have had Shudzinski, is why the Browns have had Pat Shurmur. Nobody wants to come here. They want to leave, but usually by the time they leave, nobody wants them anymore. It's a kiss of death. And Stefanski's running off 2 years in a row of accolades. He's not going to step down in the middle of the year, David. And the reason he's not is because nobody would hire him if he did that. So,
do you think that the reason they hired Ken Dorsey, or the reason that he was brought on, is to kind of be like a scapegoat for Stefanski just in case the season went awry?
Well, yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, Keith. And, I was thinking about that. And I know Ken. And if I could, I won't get a hold of Ken. But Ken lived very close to me in Lakewood Ranch. And I got to know him in Florida. And he was a member of our club. And I had, it was funny, the week that he was supposed to come on the air, that he agreed to do, he ended up going to Buffalo. And it was kind of an interesting time. I could talk to him, but I won't, because the bottom line is he's probably wondering what the fuck he's doing there too. My guess is that whatever the deal was, the real scapegoat was the previous offensive coordinator, AVP, who wasn't one. I mean, and so they put another guy in who isn't one. There's nothing they're running offensively that has anything to do with Ken Dorsey. And I'm not protecting him because I like him. It isn't that. There's nothing visually that I see that would even suggest that they are running anything that he is trying to implement. He is AVP number 2. And this is what management does. Believe me, they hired me as a general manager in Tennessee. They didn't want a general manager. They wanted somebody they could kick in the pants and beat up. And I can't explain it to you any better than that. So Ken Dorsey, this is hurting him tremendously because, you get let go by Buffalo and then this happens and he's not even getting a chance to shape his own destiny. It's really unfortunate, and being asked, why did we not want Kareem Hunt? You would have to ask why management would believe that the belligerent Deontay Foreman would be more significant than a guy who had helped you in the past. You have to ask yourself that. And the organization is about doing what Jimmy says and doing what DePodesta says, and it has nothing to do with anything but a fucking power trip. And I've worked there, I've been there, I've done this. And it has that smell. And I'm 67-year-old man now, not 27 anymore. And it still smells the same. Still smells the same to me. There is always, Vrabel. The one thing you would get with Vrabel would be emotion. Which is void right now. But at the same time, he wouldn't take a job with these bozos. I mean, he's in the best possible position. He's just kind of doing his thing and he's seeing what's happening. And he says, well, somebody will offer me a job next season. And sure as fuck, I ain't going to take a job here. Not when I see how this machine works and operates. And again, when you have an offensive line that doesn't block and you have wide receivers who don't catch the ball and don't get separation, what do you expect? The thing that I find most interesting about this loss is how good a game Deshaun Watson played, and nobody will say that. So I'll say it. He played a really good game. He was stepping into his throws. If you have any question about his arm strength, he answered it today. The throw with a guy right in his face hit Cooper in stride. There are a number of bullets that he threw in tight coverage situations that were right on the money, and he was getting his feet under him. I thought that he played and he scrambled, got some yardage for the team. I think that he played a very selfless game, and the fact that he had to sit there watching DeJuan Jones play Matador was just pathetic. It's just pathetic, and he deserves better. They all deserve better.
Well, even the interception was right off of the,
That's right. And that ball was hummed in there, man.
That was zipped, and I thought he made some great decisions on taking off periodically. It kind of kept them on their toes because they didn't know if he was going to go and run, if he was going to throw. Jerry Jeudy had a good game. Made a couple of catches behind him a little bit. Made some other good catches.
But those are the plays wide receivers have to make. I mean, not every ball is going to keep you perfectly in stride. I mean, every great receiver that you think of didn't have them put on the numbers every time. We got guys like Cedric Tillman and put it on the numbers and they drop it. You got and where was Elijah Moore?
He was running decoy almost the entire game.
What's the point?
Yeah, every time he was out there. On the pass that they threw underneath to Jeudy, Moore cleared out the middle of the field and took the safety deep. It was kind of cool to be able to actually see that play because they actually showed it. And he did take that guy out of there, which gave him a chance to do that. So,
and what MS1 is saying, they have no loyalty to anybody. If you don't have loyalty to Amari Cooper, who led your team in yards and reception and all that, if you don't have any more respect for Joe Flacco than to just let him drift and go someplace else to be a backup somewhere else, they don't have loyalty to anyone, just themselves, Jimmy Haslam and themselves. And it just shows in every aspect of their game. You need capable management, Rudy. And that isn't a guy who wants to stand there and show you how big his dick is. All right. That's Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam, and the reason he believes this is because he acquired all the shit from his old man. He's got an inferiority complex. He's got to show everybody that he's in charge, even if it doesn't make any fucking sense. And the thing with Kevin Stefanski, I'll say this too. I don't want to hear about Ivy League anymore. I'm a better businessman than a lot of Ivy League businessmen. I didn't go to the Ivy League, and I flunked out of college. I don't want to hear that shit. Kevin Stefanski, he's a real thinker. Yeah, I want a real doer. I want somebody who accomplishes something, not somebody who sits there and fritters away a clock. It's ridiculous. And it isn't that his MO is scapegoating Prevensky, as he is being called in the chat room. It's about him feebly saying, I had something to do with that. And it's like, no, you had everything to do with it. And until you stand up there and tell the truth and say, I fucked this game up, then I don't want to have anything to do with him. Because he's never going to be a really good coach until he can sit there and acknowledge that was a mistake on my part, nobody else's. And until he's willing to sit up there and say, Deontay Foreman was lined up in the wrong place. Amari Cooper should never have dropped that pass. Until he's willing to hold individuals accountable instead of coddling them and hiding behind, he's like the man behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz. Until he's willing to take responsibility and lead men, he's never going to be a great coach to me. And this I felt for the last couple of years. Andrew Berry, he's Jimmy's money man. He knows nothing about football, nothing about talent, nothing about drafting, nothing at all. Somebody willing to acknowledge Watson was never the entire issue. You know what part of the issue he was? That he got hurt and that they paid an excessive amount of money for him. And that his judgment was so bad in what he did while he was in Houston that he was bound to pay the second he came to Cleveland. That is what the entire issue is with Deshaun Watson. That's it.
And I'll say this. Those 3 years we were going to have your first round pick, the roster's fucked because of it.
Yep. And that's all decisions that are made up above. That's all management decisions. That's what it is.
That's the pay me now or pay me later thing.
Yeah.
They're going to be paying for a while on that.
And
that's three potential players that for the next 5 years that, would have been probable starters or at least.
But we would have picked the wrong guys.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
I mean, you're surrounded by ineptitude. And if more people would just take a balanced approach to this and say, Deshaun Watson isn't what he was when he was healthier and when he was playing during the preseason, playing during practices. You tried coming out there cold and with an offense that nobody knows what in the fuck it is because it isn't Ken Dorsey's. That's for goddamn sure. And
Lou.
Yeah.
I'm looking at something right now and showing the very last play, there were actually two guys open. He just
The
didn't have
guy
time
you're
to
seeing
throw.
in the upper right-hand part of your screen was the only guy who flashed open. Nope.
Really?
I already examined the play. Don't go there. The guy in the upper left part of the screen who was running more of a flag pattern, actually had a little separation. It would have required that Watson immediately threw the ball to him. And I don't know who that was. Maybe if you're looking at the play, you can see who that player was. But everything shut down after that.
He was on the left side of the field?
Yep. When Watson went back to throw, he ran a pattern. I'll do it with my finger. He ran this and an out. Well, you know, if you're looking at me, it's the opposite way. But he went the other way. He went to the left and toward the end zone, toward the flag, toward the flag side of the end zone. And
What's
he
the flag
had
side?
and he had some separation. But that was a split second in time. If he wasn't the primary, there'd have been no way. But I don't know that. With Stefanski, who the hell knows? And why Watson bailed out to the left like that, where he can't throw across his body, I don't know why. But he didn't see anything, and I didn't see anything either, not except for that very first burst. If he would have taken a 3-step drop and basically floated the ball and hoped that the guy run under it, you'd have had something.
It looked like it was Akins to me.
That may be the case. That may be the case. So he was the only guy in my estimation who, and it was obvious they were not going to try to go for a first down. They were, the people running down the field were deep in the pattern. I don't understand the play call. You know, you had all the time in the world with a timeout to figure it out, and you'd run all the time off the clock, and that's the best you can come up with? I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. God almighty.
I have a question. So
Sure.
How did they manage to win so many games last year with, you know, 4 different quarterbacks and a patchwork offensive line and all these injuries and things like that? And here we are sitting at 1-3 at the weakest point of our schedule. Like it's only gonna get worse. It's only gonna get harder. And here we are sitting 1-3. What do you think about that?
And the freaking Commanders won again today. I mean,
yes, and their rookie quarterback's on fire. He's on fire.
They put 42 points up. Now, granted, it was against the Cardinals, but still.
Still, he's completing like 85-90% of his passes right now.
I mean,
he looks
the Bengals
very, very good.
They had a W last week, and he showed them there, didn't he?
All right. So, Keith, ask me the question again.
Okay, so last year we had all these injuries. We had different quarterbacks. We have the same quarterback this year, you know, consistently. And the results are so much different. It's drastically different. Right. Last year they made the playoffs. They won, what was it, 11 games? You know, and here we are sitting at 1-3. So what is the difference? What's the difference?
Yeah, for me, watching the speed at which the game is being played, I don't think that they worked hard at the Greenbrier, because I don't know if you've ever been to the Greenbrier. The Greenbrier used to be the nuclear basement for presidents of the United States. I don't know if people realize that, but if there needed to be a nuclear evacuation, the president of the United States, there was a setup in the basement of the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, in Sulphur Springs, I believe it is, where he went down, and that was the bomb shelter. And, you know, but it's a hoity-toity kind of place, and I don't think they worked hard on anything, especially considering they're supposed to be having this new offense that I don't see and nobody sees. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is there isn't any urgency. You don't see anybody just hurling their bodies around with reckless abandon. They're non-compass mentis. They're lining up in the wrong places. They're going in motion the wrong way. They're whiffing on blocks. And my belief is somebody convinced them that, well, they just kind of got surprised by the Texans, but we're good. And they were all coming into the season saying, this is our Super Bowl year. And I'm like, God, you're crazy, man. The attitude has to be, we got to prove ourselves that we're better than the way we ended last year. But there is nobody talking in their heads saying, you're not trying hard enough. You're not working hard enough. You know what they say, that injuries happen. Injuries happen, sometimes a fluke, but a lot of times when you're just standing around and you're not going about your business. So that's what I think it is. I think that they believed something that wasn't true, and whoever fed it to them is full of shit. They're not trying. They're not trying hard.
Well, that's an interesting take on the Greenbrier, because I always thought that was just like the setting of the movie Dirty Dancing. Like that's where it took place, the Greenbrier. Is that what?
No. Actually, it was in the Catskills. Dirty Dancing was in the upstate New York in the Catskills, and that's where somebody tried to put baby in a corner, but wasn't allowed to.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
And the thing, the idea of putting baby in a corner and being gangbanged at a Catskill resort, I mean, it's like, would be a horror. I never understood that. Like, nobody's going to put baby in a corner. It's like, wait a minute. When did we start talking about that? It's like, it's Dirty Dancing and being backed into a corner. It's like, No, that was in upstate New York.
I must have seen the TV version.
Yeah, but the Greenbrier is just a hoity-toity place, and it's an old, majestic hotel, like the Mackinac, the Mackinac Island, where Christopher Reeve, Somewhere in Time. Remember Jane Seymour and him? That was filmed in Michigan at the it was in Mackinac Island at a big resort hotel there. That's also a majestic place. Very similar to what was in upstate. God, I want to say Maine. Was it Maine? No, New Hampshire. There's a majestic old hotel on the highest mountain peak in New England, Mount Washington. And that's another one. It's a majestic old hotel, but it's not the kind of place you're going to sweat your balls off, man. I would have had those people coming off that fucking loss. I would have had those people working their ass off in a goddamn sauna. I'm serious. You don't go back to the goddamn Greenbrier. Yeah, and one season is not a prelude necessarily to the next season. And we're seeing that firsthand. The players thought that they were better than they were, and they haven't exerted themselves, and the coaching staff certainly hasn't exerted themselves either. As far as the Nick Chubb thing, it's such a non-starter. So big deal. He's going to practice, but we won't see him for another 3 weeks. The season's over. You're better off not playing him at all. You're better off not letting him hurt himself this year and let him go someplace else where he can maybe have a career for himself. There's no hope in Cleveland. There's no hope for having football in Cleveland. Okay? No point. As long as Jimmy Haslam's here, there's no point. You're just going to be upset. You're going to be pissed off. And if they don't lose themselves, the league will do it for them. You've seen it how many times? I don't have to. I mean, you knew. Guy breaks out in the open. Amari Cooper's wide open, runs it in for a touchdown. Do you realize that the announcers never said there's a flag on the play? The time it took for him to catch the ball midfield and outrun everybody to the end zone, you would think that either Beth Mowens, for God's sakes, or the other two guys who were in the booth would have said, wait a minute, there's a flag. No mention of it. Touchdown, Cleveland! And then, wait a minute. I never cheer on touchdowns anymore for Cleveland. I don't do it because I know.
I was listening to the radio. I had the game delayed on the TV and was listening to the radio, and they were all fired up. And then as soon as they saw that, they're like, what the heck happened? And nobody had a clue. And even after they showed the video, it was kind of the same thought, It was like, really?
They had to bring Gene Steratore in to fucking lie for the league.
It's like, really? That's what you're going to call on that?
So, no. You know what my answer was to Gene Steratore? Besides, I want to send him off to a work camp until he works until he dies. Because he's got no soul either, because he will just say whatever it is the league wants him to say. Are you trying to tell me that in the process of 22 men being on the field, in that play, in that moment, the referee saw his offhand that was underneath everything, that it took an ultra slow motion camera to see that he pinched the jersey of the guy's arm, and that in real time the referee saw that? Don't believe it, folks. Don't believe it. I've just seen it so many goddamn times. It's really pathetic. And Ed, yeah, it really is disappointing. And that's exactly right. The players just, it's like water off a duck's back. Doesn't seem to matter to them at all. And that's the deal. The reason they don't care is because they only have so many years to play this game, and they're getting crippled playing this game for these bunch of jokers, and they want their chance at some kind of reason why they're giving up their bodies. They want to win the Super Bowl. They want to have a chance. They want to be given a chance every week to win, and instead they see the wheels fall off, like at the end of this game, where there was just no reason. I mean, it was sheer panic, and it's just sad to watch. But the players, they've accepted it now, and once they've internalized it, it's done for.
I'm waiting to see how messy that locker room is going to get.
And that was that crowd too. There were so many Browns fans there. I mean, you could definitely tell on just listening to the broadcast. As far as an away game, that was as close to a home game as you're ever going to get.
Now, I want to respond to this too, and in a friendly way, because I've got no wish that Baker Mayfield would do badly. I note that every other week he's a different guy, but I don't think that he would have been the guy to lead us or anyone else to a Super Bowl. I just don't see it. But I'm glad he's doing well. And look at the journey for him. The lousy teams he had to play for, the lousy circumstances of having to replace Stafford when he got hurt without any practice, or then having to go to the fucking Carolina Panthers. It's a thankless job when what happens, you play for the Browns and it tars you for life.
I remember he had the Rams for a week or two too. So don't forget.
No, that's where Stafford went down, where he had no chance to even learn the playbook.
You did hear what I don't know if you covered that on Friday, but you did hear what he said on Rich Eisen, that, even though it was great the Cavs won the championship, and even if the Guardians happen to win, he says it's going to be nothing like if the Browns ever won.
Well,
and we all know that. All of us that are on listening to you week after week, we know that. We know that there are two seasons, football season and waiting for football season.
Well, but I disagree with the whole principle of that. I think the Cavaliers winning was the greatest thing that I've seen, that the will of one great player that attracted some other talent that would never have come to the Cavaliers if he wasn't here, and that he made the pivotal play in the game without scoring the basketball. I mean, that he would run that down from half court. That's what effort is. That's what pride, having pride inside of yourself, is all about. That you go that extra mile. You do what you have to do. And it's not, I want all the glory. It isn't that. It's in that moment, you either have that in you or you don't. Kyrie Irving made the big shot, and that's wonderful. But LeBron James, if he doesn't block that shot, we never are in a position to win the only championship that I'm ever going to see happen live in Cleveland, Ohio, and there ain't going to be nothing else. So the more you sit and wait and pine away your years, look at my hair. When I started this podcast, I wasn't gray. I'm an old guy now. Well, physically, mentally, I'm very spry, but it's been a long time. And seeing that meant so much to me. It didn't matter to me if it was the Cavaliers. I watched the Game 7 failure, I still see Nagy coming into the game and going, well, that's that. Or seeing, Jose Mesa, Joe Table blow the ninth inning because, as Omar Vizquel said, his eyes were the size of milk saucers. He was so scared and intimidated in the situation. We've seen all kinds of disappointments, but I saw that one success, and that's enough for me. I don't need more than that. And if you're waiting for the Browns, you're going to be looking at an old man like you're looking at me now. That's what you're going to be doing. And Jim, who was a good old-time buddy from up in the greater Tampa area, rolling left on a 4th and 3. Yeah. Once that play devolved, and let's be honest about this, the play call that he ran all that time off the clock for, not Watson, but Stefanski, and that's the best he could come up with. I just refuse to believe that somebody could be that inept, but so it appears to be the case. But yeah, you certainly don't want to be rolling out to your left. And that came into the case. Once that happened, it was over.
If you think about it, too, Dwan Jones was pretty much a sieve at that point. So
yeah, he was just letting everyone go by.
There was no place to go to your right unless he was able to step up and around. But
you know what it reminds me of? The insistence by some people about Deshaun Watson. It reminds me of scapegoating Haitians for immigration problems, when Haitians have been allowed in this country since the fucking 70s. Read, folks. You don't have to believe what you see on Twitter, you don't have to believe that shit. You can read the truth, and you can see how long Haitians have been coming to the United States. And why are they in Springfield? Because there were a few there and their families who finally waited their turn to come, went and joined their families, who then came and more families came. And so they settle in areas. You see, but the desire to find a scapegoat is the biggest weakness and frailty in weak-minded people. And, the fact of the matter is, what pocket presence when you're not getting any protection? You keep scapegoating, Keith, because that's the world you want to live in. It's unfortunately not one that I want to live in. That's for damn sure. We blame and blame and blame. But believe me, this comes from the top. This is not something that is one man. You may not like the trade. I didn't like the trade. I think that we gave up way too much, and it was way too risky. But it was like giving up your number one pick for Johnny Manziel. It sets you back years. And I said this on the podcast in so many years past. It sets you back for years when you make these kinds of errors. So it's going to be no turnaround for the Browns. So if unless you enjoy reveling in the negativity, stop watching. Don't waste your time. But if you enjoy this, then, suck Elon Musk's dick and go back on Twitter. I don't call it by the other name. And do what you have to do. Get that weak stuff out of here. Austin Carr said it best. Get that weak stuff out of here. Damn. Yeah. Look at this. And the sheep is about to move. It's like, how long does it take for that to come up? If you want to revel in misery. I got a life to live here. My goodness. goodness. Everybody knows this. There were adjustments that needed to be made, and they didn't have the foresight to get it done. And that's the amazing part. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why they chose. That's very good, Rick. That's why they chose the Greenbrier, because yes, basement. Very, very true.
One thing I thought was kind of fitting, and we should be happy that we don't have to deal with this, is that Bronx hometown soccer team, Ipswich Town, made it to the first division in the Premier League this year. After
wow.
having been relegated a couple of times. And they were actually the featured game today on USA Network on Peacock and NBC for the Premier League. And they actually drew with Aston Villa. And yeah, so it was a good day. They're getting a point. And it keeps them out of the bottom three. So
I wanted to point out, because CJ Probot, you're absolutely right. Let me tell you what happened. Beth Mowins is a jack of all trades, but the master of none. They keep throwing her in sporting events as the woman announcer, and I wish they wouldn't do that, because somebody's out there way better than she is. She starts out the broadcast basically saying, and Green Bay is, ended up close, but losing by 2 at Lambeau. That's how she pronounced Lambeau Field. Lambeau. She doesn't even know what Lambeau Field is. The fact that Jim Facenda, these are the times, with Bart Starr running the sneak in the end zone to get the winning touchdown. The history of Green Bay Lambeau Field, and she doesn't know how to pronounce it. You gotta be kidding me. And I hope for somebody, because I'm the one moaning when I hear that she's doing the broadcast. And that tells you what the league thinks of you. If Beth Mowins is doing your broadcast, you're at the bottom of the heap.
Yeah, it's going to be a bad game, man. Like I was waiting for her to say, come in and say, the autumn wind is a pirate blowing in from sea. But she never did that.
Yeah, I mean, she's not good at what she does, and it's unfortunate that she's the example. And there have got to be a bunch of women say, God, I could do a whole lot better than that. Why her?
Doris Burke.
Doris Burke's been around, but Doris Burke lacks eye candy. And let's be honest, the men who are making these decisions, they want a little bit more of that eye candy stuff. And it's ridiculous. And you're right, Keith, there is no fire. And I think betting is what you meant. Betting would mean that the chicaner, that the referees were in cahoots with Tempur-Pedic, and I don't think you mean that. That would be my thought on that, Amsterdam. Oh, he did correct himself. And again, I don't see any sense in Chubb coming back either. I respect the guy, and what he's done to get to this point is amazing. And I hope that he doesn't further damage himself by trying to be a good man when he's surrounded by bad men. God.
Moo, let me ask you something. What do you think overall about the these convenient penalties that happen, just like the one we were talking about in this game, where it was a hold on the center and they called it late and this and that, and you have the Chiefs Bengals earlier in the year at the end of the game and things like that.
Right,
like
that was a horrible call.
Yeah, so I mean, what, and they don't even acknowledge that. No. They don't acknowledge that. They don't say we were wrong. So what does that mean? Like, what does that as visually to us, the fans? Like, what does that say to us?
I'll tell you what it tells me. All right. And I can't say what all the fans are thinking, but when you have two presidential candidates, one's a woman who says, and I am in favor of fracking, when every one of her policies that she's done in the past was against fracking, and you have The other guy who is saying all kinds of things that are completely out of orbit, if you repeat something often enough, people obviously will take sides and believe whatever that something is. As far as the league is concerned, they don't have to answer to anybody. And I think one of the things, and it's, you saw what happened when they tried fact checking a debate, and all they did was discover that both candidates just lie nonstop. And if you sat there and you analyzed it that way, it would just be constant interruptions and corrections. It's like, but you didn't say that 4 years ago. That kind of stuff. We believe what we hear over and over again, and we come to accept that we are willing to spend our money and give our money to an entity like the NFL that is inherently dishonest, that sold its soul to gambling interests, that we swore to God in the past, from Rich Carlos's field goal that wasn't good, that they just threw up their hands good and ran off the field against when the Browns played the Broncos all the way back. And what was it, 87?
Yeah, I remember that.
87.
I mean, to Tim Couch, we had a chance to get into the playoffs, and what do? They go backwards in a play and give the ball to the other team. We gotten to the point where we just, yes-em, Mazza, yes-em. We are willing to believe anything because we have a habit. We have a habit that's as real as heroin, obviously, because I don't believe anything those people say. I see it every week, and it always falls in the favor of certain teams. So what is the explanation? I think it's clear what the explanation is, that if you're a winning team, you'll get calls. If you're not a winning team, they will find ways to make you lose, so you continue to be Charlie Brown, and Lucy continues to pull the ball up and make you fall on your back. That's what I make of it. Nothing more, nothing less. They have the authority to do it, and so they're doing it.
So it's like a microcosm of real life, right?
Yeah, I think that it is. I think that anything that gets people talking and stirred up is considered okay. And even if it's not close to true, if you just throw things out there and, that people, if they hear it often enough and you can get it up on social media often enough, people will believe it. And, and I like to think that I'm open-minded. I'd like to think that, there's bad judgment in the world. I don't believe anything that Attorney Bisbee says. I don't believe anything that all these reporters that keep throwing this shit at the wall. The more they have to repeat it, the more I know it's not true.
Right. And so whatever it is that their quote unquote truth is, as long as they push it hard enough and repeat it often enough, then it becomes true. That's basically what you're saying, right?
That's right. I mean, and, do you think anybody really gives a shit whether Nick Harris was holding or not? Maybe
No.
Browns fans, but Browns fans are so beaten up right now, and 50% of them hate the team because of Deshaun Watson anyway. They're the perfect target because they'll just go, oh, okay. All right, yeah, I guess that's because of Watson. And so they just accept it. But, if I would love to see if the pet teams in the NFL got these bad calls, the kind of uproar there would be. But, suddenly, teams like the Texans will get better calls because, they're on the rise.
Well, we saw that happen years ago with the Saints and Sean Payton, and how he single-handedly managed to change a rule, right, about reviewing pass interference. And so that's the result of that. That's what happens when things like that happen to the pet teams. But when things like
guy absolutely tackled the dude, nobody called it.
No. Okay. So, you might be right. All I'm saying is it got the attention that was intended. and it got the result that was intended.
Keith, you need brain surgery.
The
Right.
interesting part of that was the following year. You know how the teams do their release schedules for their, their little graphics and stuff. They actually, when they were playing the Rams or whatever, they basically showed a Ram player blasting the shit out of a Saints player, like in their little graphic. It was like part of the. They totally trolled them. I mean, it was like it was so obvious. But yeah, that's a great point you brought up, though.
Yeah. And you think I wasn't watching the game and that there wasn't any scoring? They were exhausted. I'll tell you, I mean, LeBron missed a baby hook because he put it up short. He was so tired. Kevin Love missed shots. They all missed shots. Steph Curry railed one off the backboard without hitting the rim. I remember this like it was yesterday, Keith. Don't tell me that this is bullshit. I didn't say that LeBron scored the winning basket. I said he made the most important play of the game because he was so tired when he couldn't hit the baby hook, but he managed to find the reserve from half court. You need to look at the video because they did a scientific examination of that play to determine how many steps and how many miles an hour LeBron James ran to be able to go half court to block that shot and pin it against the backboard without goaltending.
I have that picture in my office with that. The block and the shot are in my office. So
yep. The fact of the matter is that's an easy layup, and they go up by points on their home floor, turn the whole game around. You could feel the crowd have this catharsis, a negative catharsis. The wind was knocked out of them. They see their guy going to the basket, Iguodala, and he's just going to lay it in. And the next thing they know, out of nowhere, man, taken out of their mouths, bread taken out of their mouths. And so they got to feel what it was like. So, yeah, I'm sticking with my story because
they got to feel what it was like to be a Cleveland fan, basically.
To have a victory snatched away from you by some kind of superhuman thing. So at any rate,
Chris Christopherson has just passed.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's too bad. He was really bad in A Star Is Born. No.
And also the guy that played Taggart in the Beverly Hills Cop movies.
Oh, really? My God. They're dropping like flies. You know, what's happened with Emerson is probably what's happened with the whole team. You know, maybe
he's in concussion protocol now.
Huh?
Oh.
He's in concussion protocol now.
Who, Emerson?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because whatever it is, he was playing 10 yards off receivers. Maybe he had a good year last year and it went into his head, but something else is in his head. It's called a blood clot. Yeah, this is, they don't report this because Beth Mowins is trying to figure out how to pronounce Lambeau Field.
Hey, Lou.
Yeah.
Your friend Wiley Fox here on Sports and Twitter, they recorded the game at home asking if it's worth watching.
Wiley asked that?
Yes.
Where is he asking this? I'm sorry.
I was going to the Browns Twitter feed and I found it.
Oh, okay. Well, tell him, yeah, it was a great. No, no. You tell him that Mr. Moohead said, there's a lot of things that I disagree with about Wiley, but you don't need to do that to your life on a Sunday on a beautiful weekend. Yeah. You don't need to do that, So no, I would hold off on that.
You can clean gutters or wash out the trash can.
Right. And that's the thing about the 4:00 games is like you realize how great of a day you were having before the game comes on.
Exactly. And then it's time to go to bed. You can't go to sleep. Tony is saying, yeah, this is what the press comes out with. Well, it's Deshaun and DeJuan Jones. Did you see Deshaun Watson picking on him? You see? And this is how it goes. And this is what the fans want to hear. It's just really sad.
I mean, does anybody legit think DeJuan Jones wants the quarterback to get hurt?
No, he
doesn't get to keep his job if the quarterback gets hurt.
He didn't look like he was very motivated, though, did he?
I think his knee was bothering him a lot more than he's been letting on. His mobility.
He shouldn't be playing if it's that limiting. He shouldn't be playing
at this point.
And Keith, that's the other thing. When you accept what the media tells you, when you basically kneel down in front of Gene Steratore and praise him as God, this is what you get. Get over it. It's the significant play of the game. And that's what your take is. That's a waste of time. Total waste of time. I'm done.
Wiley
here.
liked to reply. I told Wiley, don't. And they like to reply.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, God. So at any rate, I'm done. Thanks, everybody, for jumping in. Yeah, we all have the L right on our foreheads. But hey, there's always next week, and we can always have fun together. That's the reason we get together, and it's the reason I continue doing this after 22 years. And I like to be opinionated on the air, but I love every person who's in the chat room. I may disagree boldly with them, but I appreciate their being here, because that's more than I can say for some people who have cut out because of some of these reasons of political ideology separations. Social media has become a way of deleting people, a way of blocking people, more than it is a way of bringing people together. And it's really a shame.
They just ripped Josh Allen's helmet off.
I don't think anyone wants to see that.
No, it was 4th and 1, and he had a quarterback sneak, and he can definitely get a yard if he needs to get a yard. And in the middle of the pile, they were trying to grab him, and the Ravens accidentally ripped his helmet off.
Well, hey, Moo, thanks for doing the broadcast, man. I enjoy your stuff, and I'll catch you next time.
Keith, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it, buddy. And thanks to everybody who came in here today. Hammer Time and David and Tony the Calf and all the people who help, be a part of this program. I tremendously appreciate it. Everyone's doing this out of their own goodwill. Nobody's getting compensated in any way. And at least you know that what I'm saying you may disagree with, but it's not being said like Mary Kay Cabot because she's being paid to say it. All right.
I got promised 100,000 NIL money. What the hell? I'm out of here.
Oh, that's it. It's done. We'll see. We'll see y'all tomorrow, and we'll have a different take then. Not until then. Hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.